Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelley.
Happy Sunday to you. Welcome to Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left is Megan Shackelford in for Michael Kelley this morning. Good morning, Megan. Thanks for being here. I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, 3 months after voters approved Amendment 3, reestablishing abortion rights in Missouri, Republicans in the Missouri legislature are steamrolling toward a redo. We continue our exclusive series, St. Louis Primary, the race for mayor. This time we go in depth with candidate Kara Spencer, with early voting now underway. Democrat Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker uses his State of the State address to go on a rant about Republicans and Nazis. And our quote of the week, the St. Louis City Sheriff is accused of making a deputy roll dice to keep his job. Also, Missouri Republicans fast-track a state takeover of the St. Louis City Police Department, and St. Louisans brave the extreme cold to send a message about Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and DOGE. We begin with House Republicans, state Senate Republicans in Missouri responding with a fury to a judge striking down state regulations on abortion services, leading to the resumption of legal abortions in the state for the first time in nearly 3 years.
By striking down Missouri's licensing requirements, the court has prioritized the abortion industry over women's safety. These laws existed to protect women from unsafe conditions and reckless providers.
She claims even back alley abortions are legal in Missouri now without those regulations in place. State Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman of Arnold says Republicans are going to put abortion rights back on the ballot. John, Republicans apparently have the votes to do it in the legislature. Should they? Haven't the voters already spoken?
Well, the voters spoke on what I think was a flawed amendment, Amendment 3 last year. I don't think the voters of Missouri favor zero abortions. The policy that we had prior, where you couldn't have an abortion even in cases of rape and incest, for example, that won't pass on the ballot. So I hope the legislature, as they address this, seeks to make abortions as rare as possible because it's a life-saving measure. And to do that, I think you start putting restrictions on late-term abortions, and some of the policies that were in place, these health and safety standards ought to be involved. I think the voters would support that on the ballot, and it's going to have to work its way through the legislative process and see what comes out the other end. I think if they put a flat ban on all abortions, I don't think that passes with the voters.
Voters already supported what we have.
Of course they did. Yeah, I mean,
does it need to be back on the ballot?
No, it's no surprise. This is what the Republican legislature does every time voters support what they would consider a left-of-center ballot issue. Medicaid expansion, raising the minimum wage. All of these issues, they don't like it when the voters pass it. They go back to the legislature. They try to undo it. It's a waste of time. Let's focus on new issues. The voters have spoken. It's time to move forward.
Another issue on the fast track in Jefferson City, bringing the St. Louis City Police Department under control of a state police board instead of being run by the city's mayor. The Missouri House overwhelmingly passed a measure to do so in the past week. 106 to 47 was the vote. Republicans appear to have the votes in the Senate for this, too, and it's a top issue for Republican Governor Mike Kehoe. So it looks like it's going to happen, even though city voters approved local control by the mayor back in 2012. Megan.
Well, it wasn't just city voters who approved local control. That was a statewide measure. So this has been, again, addressed by the voters. I think the main issue that people are confused about is what's the difference going to be? What are we getting under state control that we don't have under local control? And when you look at Kansas City, who is operating under state control, they aren't any better off. Their crime stats aren't any better. Their outcomes aren't any better. Nobody can provide specifics on what is going to be different with this board. What can city residents expect to see improved under this new plan? We don't know.
But isn't this still going to be local control to some degree? It's going to be city residents on a 5-member board appointed by the governor, and the mayor is still part of the 5-member board.
The mayor is a part of the board. The main bulk of the appointees are coming from the governor, and so that is why it's considered state control. So it's semantics, and this is, to me, a bright, political, shiny object. It's a way for people in the legislature to say, see, look what we're doing. We're improving public safety, but they don't actually have any details of how this is going to improve outcomes for city residents.
Well, allow me to...
Mayor Tashara Jones says
allow me
to
elucidate here
again and again. How does this make St. Louis safer?
Because the person appointing the police board supports the police. And right now, the mayor of the city of St. Louis doesn't support the police. Now you're going to have the governor appointing a majority of the board. He's going to make sure they support the police. They're going to make sure that the crime statistics that get reported are actually true and accurate crime statistics. And this is not a panacea. Don't make no mistake, this is not a panacea. But the new police board might say, oh, I don't know, maybe we ought to hire some more officers. So I do think there are appreciable differences that can and will be made under this new construct, and it is going to happen.
On one of the coldest days of the year, a crowd gathered in St. Louis to protest the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, cutting federal jobs and programs under President Trump and his DOGE czar, billionaire businessman Elon Musk.
If they cared about saving money, they'd go to the Pentagon, right? Like, that's where all the money is. This is just an attempt to kneecap the American working class.
A group of current and former federal workers calling themselves the St. Louis Democratic Socialists of America held a Fund Don't Freeze rally at the Department of Veterans Affairs in St. Louis Wednesday. John, for all the bluster about cuts so far by DOGE, they are but a blip in terms of the actual federal budget deficit. As the protester said, shouldn't they start at the Department of Defense?
They're there now.
Most of our tax
and isn't it comforting when the socialists are saying this is a bad policy? Look, they're in the Defense Department now. I think it is entirely appropriate for government waste to be rooted out. I remember my first presidential vote was for Ronald Reagan so many years ago. And you know what he ordered his cabinet to do? Every cabinet office had to find 10% of their budget and cut it. That was a directive from the president. I think there's a lot of hysteria over this thing. But if you can responsibly cut federal spending, that's a good thing for the country.
There have been similar rallies across the country over this, but isn't this what voters elected Donald Trump to do?
Well, it's unclear if voters knew that this is what they elected Donald Trump to do, right? I've seen some just astounding videos on social media of Trump supporters in tears, shocked that they've cut Department of Agriculture grants. A Missouri farmer went viral for saying, well, I didn't do my research. I didn't know he was going to stop my funding for a project that I've already embarked on. I saw an educator, I believe in Alabama, almost in tears. We get all of our funding from the Department of Education. What's going to happen to us if we don't have these funds anymore? So the devil is in the details. It is yet to be seen what they'll actually accomplish with these cuts. But I agree with John. We should be for auditing. We should be for transparency. We should know where every dime is going. But I don't think it's fair to say that this is exactly what Trump supporters voted for.
Well, and look, part of the issue is the messenger, right? It's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan, a lot of presidents.
Yeah, and look, there's a very limited part of the budget that is actually cuttable. It's called non-defense discretionary spending. And every time we've had a Republican Congress and a Republican in the White House, non-defense discretionary spending has been cut. They're not going to save $2 trillion. That's not feasible. It's not possible. But I'm all for getting in there and seeing, because, look, so there are tax dollars that get wasted. I waste money. Everybody wastes money. Large institutions waste money.
Democrat Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker gave his State of the State speech Wednesday talking economics and balanced budgets, but then ranting about Republican rule in neighboring Missouri and across the country, drawing comparisons to Nazi Germany.
What comes next? After we've discriminated against, deported, or disparaged all the immigrants and the gay and lesbian and transgender people, the developmentally disabled, the women, and the minorities, once we've ostracized our neighbors and betrayed our friends, after that, when the problems we started with are still there staring us in the face, what comes next?
Applause there, but he also drew some boos, Megan. Is he off the mark about the state of his state?
Absolutely not. I listened to the full speech. So what we all just saw there was just a few seconds. The end, the rant, which I wouldn't call it a rant, it was a great anecdote, was about 4 or 5 minutes long. The full speech was 45 minutes. It was phenomenal. What J.B. Pritzker has done with Illinois is impressive. The economic growth, the job growth, the improvement in their finances. I think any Democrat who is concerned about the future and how do we move forward at an executive level needs to go watch that State of the State speech, and you see right there a really, really great path forward for Democrats.
Is she right?
No. There's a guy that doesn't want to talk about Illinois. So he starts talking about Nazis. Look, they've got a budgetary mess over there. Businesses are fleeing. Taxes are high. They keep trying to legalize more stuff to be able to tax it and get more revenue. I mean, I wouldn't want to talk about that either if I were the governor.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelley, in depth with St. Louis Alderwoman Kara Spencer, who polls are suggesting now very well could be our next mayor.